Hey gang, it's Powerhouse Pam Waters of Soul Advantage Mobile Notary. Thank you so much for joining our Maryland Coins Notary Show with my special guest, Takisha Smith Robinson of AfterHoursVA. So Keisha, take it away. That's about as far as I'm going to go today, because you know why, but take it away.
Hi, everyone. Again, I am Takisha Smith Robinson. I've branded myself across social media as After Hours VA. I am a commissioned notary here in Virginia. Started my traditional notary career in 2012 and then became an e-notary in 2015. And for those of you who don't know, Virginia was the first state to legalize remote notarization. So I do realize we have a lot of Maryland notaries in the house, and you guys just passed the law October of last year, correct? And so I'll be speaking more from the Virginia perspective, but if you have any questions, please feel free to stop and ask me. So I got my start as a Ron through Notarize. And so I was one of the first Virginia notaries that they actually hired on the platform. They came to Virginia, they vetted me, they started working with our Secretary of State. And so that's how that company really took off and became the company that they are today. So grew up at Notarize. And then in 2020, I decided to go independent, which meant I was going on my own Ron platform, bringing in my own clients and that sort of thing. So got my start there. I always push Notarize. I do realize it's not a company that's on board in Maryland at this point in time, but that's how I actually got my start in Ron. And again, started working with some independent platforms 2020, especially in the height of COVID when the world was shut down and, a lot of states were being kind of reactive because they were putting all these emergency laws into place because they didn't have Ron laws on the books. So Ron has been around again. Like I said, we legalized it in 2011 and then had laws on the books by 2012. But COVID really intensified Ron. And, that's when it became a need for everyone. I won't get into much until you have questions, but there are 5 things I wanted to kind of talk about. I was doing an interview a couple months back, and they said if you had 5 things to offer new notaries or notaries getting into Ron as it relates to platforms and that sort of thing, what would it be? And so my first one is the platform, and this is specifically for platforms because that's what everyone wants to know. What's the best platform to be on and that sort of thing. So if you are new to Ron or looking to become an e-notary, you first want to start off with what state approved. So if you're in a state, some states have come down the pipeline and they've outlined which vendors and which platforms that they are allowing their notaries to use. So if you're in a state, you definitely want to start with your Secretary of State first. If your Secretary of State doesn't offer a list, like Virginia doesn't offer a list, but it does say it's up to the notary if they pick a platform, whether it meets a certain criteria. So you definitely want to look at what your SOS or Secretary of Commonwealth has put into place first. When you're vetting a platform, your second option, you need to look at the cost. There's a lot of differences in platforms, whether they're independent or if they're a hybrid platform. You want to look at some offer a monthly or annual subscription. You may have to pay for KBA. You may have to pay for credential analysis. So cost is something you definitely, want to look at. Also, when vetting a platform, you want to look at what type of support and training does that platform offer. Is it 24 hours? Is the support within the United States? Because if you're on a platform and something happens in the middle of the session, you want to be sure you're able to reach out to someone and they can offer that type of training. And what I like to tell notaries, you have to understand that it's not the platform's job to train us on how to be a notary. So you want that training first, but you do want to make sure that the platform offers some type of training so that you can be comfortable with the platform. Because when you're a Ron, you have to act as tech support. And so if you're on a platform, you have to help the client know how to clear their caches, how to give their browser access to their camera, their microphone, and that sort of thing. And then you just want to know how the platform behaves within itself. So any platform that I use, I get on and I vet, which means that I may have to spend a little money to see how the platform is performing from the notary side as well as the customer side, because you definitely want to have that knowledge so that if a customer gets stuck, you know how to clear it. Now, I'm a Windows person. My husband has a MacBook, so sometimes I have to go to him. So you may have customers that get on and say, well, I'm on a MacBook. How do I do this and that sort of thing? So kind of having that background knowledge. But again, going back to the platform, learning everything you need to know as a notary on how to operate that platform. Let's see, that was the third. Fourth, you want to know what your business model is. What are your goals as a Ron? And I say that because I hear a lot of people say, hey, I just became a Ron. Where do I go next? Who's going to bring me clients? These platforms, when I talk about platforms, I talk about them in the sense of four different categories. You have what I call the contract 1099 platform, which means they bring you clients. And in return, you share in, the fees. They may collect the whole fee and they may pay the notary as a 1099. Example of those platforms will be Notarize, Notary Camp. They bring you the clients. You don't do any marketing, but they collect the whole fee and pay you a percentage. Second form of platform is what I like to call independent, which means you do all the marketing, you go out and find your own clients, you bring them on your own independent platform, and therefore you have to pay for access to that platform. So that means either a monthly fee, annual fee, you're paying for video storage, you're paying for the e-journal that's embedded in. And so you want to be mindful of when you go the independent route, what your state says you can charge, because we find that a lot of times states may say, oh, well, you can charge $4 per notarial act in the remote space or $25 per notarial act in the remote space, but your platform is charging you $75 a month to use it. So you basically want to, make good business sense, because Ron is not for everyone and Ron is not for every notary. I do say if it's legal in your state, it will behoove you to become a Ron, because it's just another form of diversified income you can add, to your notary stream. But it also has to make good financial sense for you. So off the bat, if you want to go independent, just keep in mind is, you have to have platform fees, and then you have to have the customers to support those fees. So that's what I consider an independent platform. The third one would be a hybrid, which means they operate in both. So they give you clients and then they pay you a percentage, and then also you can bring on your own clients. Some of the hybrid platforms are like onenotary.us. I believe eNotaryLog is another one. Um, and let's go back to independent because I kind of skipped over that. But some examples of independent platforms where you bring your own customers on. Doc Verify is probably the main one people have heard of. Secured Signing, SignIX, and there's a lot popping up. I did a conference last year, and at one point in time, when COVID hit, it may have been 40 platforms. And then by the time we did that Ron conference, it was well over 400 platforms. And you probably never heard of any, but there's a lot of like e-signature platforms that are getting into the game and, offering Ron as a service. So that's the independent piece. And then also the fourth platform I call kind of like your lender title platforms. And those are platforms that you only have access to those platforms if you work for certain title companies or signing companies. So an example would be Nexus ClearSign. I do a lot of work with Amrock, and they utilize Ron on the Nexus ClearSign platform, but I can't bring my own clients. I only have access to that platform through Amrock signings. Also, the closing exchange, they utilize Nexus Clear Sign as well. And then there's some others. So kind of knowing what your business model is when you first become a RON will help you in the long run, because I've met with notaries who said, oh, I signed up for Doc Verify. When are they going to give me clients? Well, Doc Verify is an independent platform. So a lot of times you want to do that research up front to, look at the costs and also look at your goals and business model as a RON as to, do you want to work for, a company that gives you the clients, or do you want to go out on your own, or you have enough business or you have relationships with title companies already and you can say, hey, I can be your go-to RON. I'm setting up myself with a platform. If they're feeding you clients, it's going to make good, business sense. And then the fifth, I would say, when you're vetting a platform, knowing what type of access they're giving you. Here in Virginia, we have to keep our e-journal and a copy of our videos for 5 years. And there are some platforms that are going to do that storage for you, no cost. And then there's some platforms that will charge you an additional to keep your videos. And then there are some platforms, like once you cease business with them, you're locked out of the platform and you can't get your data. So like states like Florida, they have to keep their data for 10 years. So I make it a best practice when I'm performing a RON, even though the independent platform I'm using, they keep the data for 7 days and then you can pay an additional fee for them to keep it for lifetime access. I just make it a point to download my video, download my e-journal, and I'm keeping that on the external hard drive for my own safekeeping. Because the last thing you want is, something to come up in a court of law or come up anywhere and you have to go back and search through videos and journals and say, oh, well, what platform was I on when I performed it? You'll have that data. And that's the good thing about being a RON these days, is that you have multiple platforms you can choose from, and you not only can work for one, but you can choose to be independent and a contract 1099. So I still have a relationship with Notarize because that's where I started. But when I started with them back in 2016, I had to sign a non-compete and non-disclosure that I wouldn't work for any other platform, and I couldn't do it independently because it would look as if it was competition. So late 2019, I resigned from Notarize. And then in 2020 of January, they came out and said, hey, we're hiring all these independent notaries, which to them, independent means that you can work for Notarize, you can work for Notary Cam, you can work any hours of the day and night that you want to. So I came back onto the platform as a independent notary because I knew I wanted to kind of go in another avenue and test out other platforms. So that's kind of spoiled me in a way, because I look at other platforms and I immediately compare them to Notarize. And so one of the questions I get is, what's the best platform? There is no best platform. I've used a couple, I've tested a couple, and that sort of thing, and you'll find that some platforms have certain features and then the other platforms don't have certain features. So it's kind of costly to get in there and kind of figure out where you want to be. So that's why the research up front is very important when picking a platform, because you don't want to just sign up for Doc Verify and then you get on and you pay that $75 and you're like, hey, I don't even have a client. So having, that knowledge up front, the research you're doing about the platforms, and then having your marketing plan in place. Because if you off the bat say, I want to do independent, I want to bring my own clients. So definitely having your marketing plan in place up front to say, hey, this is how I'm going to get clients. This is how I'm going to retain clients. And kind of dispelling a myth. I see a lot of notaries, they sign up for RON and say, hey, I'm going to do 100% RON. And you want to be sure that you know that all loan signings can't just be RON, and you can't make them RON just because you have your own platform. So that was a hard learning lesson too. I will say that I do quite a bit of general notary work. So what I've done is, when people call me for general notary work, I say, hey, do you know you can do this online? You have access to a computer. So kind of gauging them to convert that traditional in person to a RON transaction. So I'll pause there and get a sip of water if if anyone has any questions.
I already, I mean, you just said what my question was, and that is there are two things that you said that were important. You can't convert all loan signings to Ron, but however, you can suggest it for general notary work. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
And so
okay.
we want to be certain because it's some lenders and it's some title companies that may have the last say on what becomes Ron. And it's really not the lenders and the title companies, it's really the investors at the end of the day. You know, they want to be able to sell loans on the secondary market. So that's where a lot of the controversy is coming into. So for most of the loan signings I do, independently or through signing companies, they're seller packages because the seller packages, of course, don't have, you know, a a note associated with it. So
Mm-hmm.
most of the seller packages, you know, haven't had an issue with. It's when it comes to down to, you know, having that note and that sort of thing. So
Oh,
mid 2020, I did a marketing campaign, and I'm not a marketing guru. So, you know how you hear notaries say, "Oh, I walk into the title company and I sell myself and I got snacks." I would
yeah.
never do that because it's not my personality.
Right.
It's just not my personality. And I know I hear people say on, you know, in the groups, you know, don't email title companies, they get bombarded. Well, 2020, I went to VLTA, which is the Virginia Land Title Association.org. Every state has one. So if you Google your state plus title agency, they have to keep record of all approved title companies and, you know, people in the area, and they give you names and they give you email addresses. So I did a big campaign where I emailed
Every
um everybody, and in the subject line I put, are you looking for a Ron expert? And so I sold myself in the email, but not only that, I gave them some links to other companies. Like Notarize has a really good like onboarding program for title companies and, you know, real estate offices and that sort of thing. So I said, hey, you know, even if you don't need my service, if your title company doesn't already have Ron in existence, go here for, you know, certain resources to learn more about it. And I had good success, but the successes in the follow-up, which I didn't do a good job on, but I did have a couple, you know, title companies reach out to me, and I did gain a real estate office here in Virginia. They're actually in Virginia Beach. I'm in Richmond. And so they send me a lot of powers of attorneys because they deal a lot with the military community. So a lot of their clients are overseas. They may be U.S. citizens, but they're stationed overseas and that sort of thing. So did gain one good client out of that. So I say, you know, like I said, the conversion with general notary work and then reaching out to resources you may already have. Because another thing I learned is that you have to put yourself as the expert in this, because you'll have people come to you and they don't know the process. Like I've had so many attorneys to come to me, and I set up a Ron session, and the attorney said, hey, I want to be online. So I added the attorney as a witness, and he's telling the client to sign the document, hold it up, print it, and sign it in front of me. And I'm like, sir, no, that's not how a Ron session goes. We do electronic signatures. Now, luckily, this guy was in Richmond. He was like 8 minutes away from me. So we ended this session, and I just ended up meeting him in person. So I find in this business, even though you may not be an expert around, you do have to put yourself out there as being an expert. And that means, you know, just knowing your notarial laws, traditional and Ron, because there are some differences. So like in the state of Virginia, we can't remotely notarize wills. And so I had an attorney come back. I need these estate planning documents. Yeah, you can have, you know, maybe the power of attorney and that sort of thing, but legally I can't remotely notarize your will. And so I could have done it and took the money, and then something happens along. So kind of knowing those things. And again, I didn't learn that stuff until I was, you know, working with Notarize and their legal team, because they have a, you know, a big legal team. They wanted everybody to, you know, be on the up and up. But kind of knowing your state laws, knowing what you can and cannot do. And you'll have people that will, they'll test you. They'll want to send you their ID through email. No, that's not how remote notarization works. You upload your ID to the platform. The platform is doing the credential analysis. It's doing the knowledge-based authentication. You can't just email me a copy of your ID and I'm just supposed to look at it. It's not how it works. So putting yourself out there as an expert, meaning knowing your state laws, knowing how your platform works, knowing how to troubleshoot and that sort of thing. The way I keep up to date, and if you've ever heard me speak, I humbly refer to myself as a Ron subject matter expert. But, I get continuing education, even though Virginia is a state that doesn't require notary education. We're self-certifying, but I do it through webinars. I do it through networking with other people in the industry, the mortgage industry, real estate, even if it's over my head, I'm watching it because I may be able to pick up something that I can use, somewhere down the line.
So do you recommend doing both a platform that is both hybrid and direct to start out with? I think that's what you call it, direct, where they feed you the business, but then you can also bring your clients in.
It just depends. What I've found with most of the hybrid platforms that are out there, they're new and up and coming, and they don't really have the bandwidth to bring clients on. Like we all know that Notarize is probably the biggest contract platform that's out there. And a lot of those platforms just can't compete with Notarize. So even if they say, oh, we'll bring you clients, they just don't, they don't have the clients to actually bring you. I say yes if it's legal in your state and you want to try both, but you just want to research some of those platforms. Like One Notary, I know they give you clients, but I think you have to bring on a certain amount of clients of your own before they start giving you their clients.
I thought Notarize was a hybrid or not for everybody, just for certain people.
It depends. Yep. So with what Notarize has done, they onboard in 4 states, which is Texas, Virginia, Nevada, and Florida. And if you live in those states, you can work as a contract Ron for them where they give you the clients. Then they started last year what they call bring your own client, and they debuted it in I don't know, Tennessee, like a state that doesn't even do a lot of Ron. And I think they did it strategically because, like I said, Virginia was the first state to legalize the remote notarization. So you would assume that they would start with Virginia, but I think they're strategically, releasing it to certain states. So they only opened up the bring your own to, I believe it was Washington first, but they keep telling us, oh, we're having this big announcement. We're going to open it up to more states, but they haven't opened up the bring your own customer piece of it yet. But I'm waiting because I definitely would pay for Notarize because they've critiqued it. They know what they're doing over there. So I know the platform will be awesome if I could bring my own clients. Now, the risk you kind of run with that is how do you distinguish yourself as an independent Ron versus Notarized? Because there's a lot of branding. So what makes a person will come back to you versus just getting on the Notarized app and getting, any old notary? Because I like to describe them as the Uber of notaries. And so that's where the customer service comes into play. Like during 2020, I automated my business to the point where I put a link on my website. This is how you make an appointment. This is how you upload your document to me. And when that would happen, I had an automated, well, not an automated email. I had to press the button, but I had a template email that would go out and say, hey, thanks for, scheduling your appointment. This is what to expect. If you haven't sent your documents, send it at this link so that I can verify the notarial verbiage. This is what you should expect 30 minutes before your appointment time. You'll receive a link from my platform. Make sure you have your ID handy. You'll have to go through knowledge-based authentication, which means that we have to verify your identity before you connect with the notary. Very important, all caps. If you fail KBA, you will not connect to the notary and you have to wait 24 hours. So I automated that. And was surprised at how many people would book an appointment, not talk to me at all until the day of, when they couldn't figure out how to take a selfie and they had to call me and say, hey, I can't do this type of thing. But I say all this say that people still kind of want that human element. And I think
Right.
that's what we all can offer that Notarized can't. Like, you can't get on Notarize and, select your own notary. But if a person knows that they can just email you, hey, Mary, you did a notarization for me, a month ago, I'd like to do another one. And, I'm gonna refer you to my family. So I do get a lot of referral business, because that was a lot I had to take in, because I'm like, okay, I'm leaving Notarize and I'm going to do this independently. What will make a person want to come to me? And it's still that human element. People still kind of, even though we do everything from our cell phones, people still want to be able to call a number and get a real person and not hit one and go around. If you ever look on a Notarized website, they don't have a phone number listed, only an email address. So
All right, so Kimberly, you don't have to raise your hands, everybody. So I see Kimberly and Nadia. Sorry, I'm probably chopping up your name. Y'all can just go ahead and talk freely with her.
Hi, my name is Nabia. I am a dual commissioned notary in Maryland and Virginia. I'm primarily in Maryland, but I'm recently commissioned in Virginia as well. I have a lot of questions, so I've written them down. I'll ask one question and then I can come back later because I want to give other people an opportunity. So which one am I going to ask first? My primary question is, in Virginia, and I have read my handbook. I have also emailed the Secretary of the Commonwealth, did not find them very helpful. My question is, in Virginia, can you notarize a document while you are physically outside of the state, as long as the document is for use in the state of Virginia?
And before I answer that, were you the host on Missy Lane's Notary Public Day?
I was, yes.
I recognize you. You did a great job. You did a great job. So Virginia is one of those states. We have that small caveat, and what do they call it? Extraterrestrial. I'm probably saying it wrong, but we have this small caveat in our law that says we are allowed to notarize documents outside of Virginia if the document is to be used in Virginia. And the answer is yes, you can. I've never done it before because honestly, if I'm traveling, it's probably for vacation, so I don't have my stamp with me. Now, the one time I drove, when I said me and my husband went to Baltimore, I was talking to Pam earlier, I keep a notary stamp in my glove compartment because I found that I have stamps everywhere. You have to have a stamp on you. But I've never had an instance where I'm somewhere else and someone has contacted me for notary services. So I've never used it. But yes, you are correct. That's a power Virginia Notary has. But I think
don't try that in Maryland. Don't try that in Maryland.
I know I can't do it in Maryland.
Don't try that here.
Yeah, I think the flip side would be proving that the document was used in Virginia. So I mean, if I were to ever encounter that, I think I would feel more comfortable if it was like, a government document, something that had Virginia in it. You know what I mean? So, but short answer, yes. And I feel your pain with the Secretary of the Commonwealth, because I emailed them a question about this identity proof and stuff, because they updated our law. And the first line was, "We're not attorneys." And I'm like, I know that, but you're the governing body. You're the governing body. I'm looking for you for, not so much answers, but kind of guidance. So I do feel your pain on that.
In Maryland, our Secretary of the State is wonderful, and I always get thorough answers back. I have like a main person who I can message directly. So if you're in Maryland, definitely reach out to the Secretary of the State. But Virginia is, every time they say, "Oh, we're not lawyers, talk to an attorney." I'm like, what? Okay, so I have other questions, but I'll hold because somebody else is waiting. Thank you.
Okay.
Great question. Kimberly?
Okay. I don't know if you guys see. So I don't know if I'm like on the right thing. I'm new. I haven't even started doing anything. I'm in Texas. I just I went to the what is it, the notary commission or whatever, and I applied and I'm waiting for that. So I haven't even started. It is so overwhelming. I'm in a group or two and I see the stuff, it's like foreign to me because I haven't started. So I'm just trying to find out. I did the first step, I'm assuming. So where do I go next as far as getting started, as far as getting the education and the training that I need?
And so if
Start with
anyone
your,
else
oh,
wants
go ahead.
to chime in, I will say, so you are just applying to become a traditional notary first, correct?
Right, because I was told I had to do that first before I can do loan signing or anything, correct?
And does Texas require you to have any type of notary training? Like, do they list that on their Secretary of State website?
It didn't say, it looked like from what I saw, it looked like they had options for it. Like you can take training, but it didn't say, it did say like, know your laws, but I didn't read anything that said it was a requirement.
Yeah, so I think Texas is sort of like Virginia, and this is what I did, and it may not be the right answer, but I will definitely try to find some state specific training. I know there's a lot of trainers and coaches out there. I have some contacts in Texas. I don't know if you've ever heard of NEMA, NEMA. She's actually her name is Melissa Eldridge, but she's actually a one of my Ron coaches. Now she specializes in Ron, but I will say find some state specific notarial training. If you can't find that, there's always National Notary. I know they have state specific, kind of like general overall training. You do want to get the Texas primer. You do want to download, your handbook and kind of read that, because you definitely want to be a great notary before you become a loan signing agent in Iran. And, not to like discourage anybody, you can be a notary for 2 days in Iran the next 2 days. But what I'm finding is a lot of people don't know the difference between an acknowledgement certificate and a jurat. So kind of knowing your basic notarial terms and that sort of thing. So trying to find a state specific training. If you can't find it in your state, I know it's a ton that exists, but going directly to NNA, taking their general Texas, and it's very generic, but they will go through like the acknowledgments and the jurats and that sort of thing. And then I know this is cliche, but I'm going to say it again. Find a mentor to cut that learning curve in half. Now, yeah, some mentors and coaches, if you will, may charge, but there are a ton of people out there who, are willing to help for free.
Okay.
But a mentor would definitely cut the learning curve in half. So knowing your notarial laws, taking a state specific course, um, getting that under your belt. And then if loan signing is your ultimate goal, of course, NNA is not required, but it is industry standard. So getting the loan signing certificate from the National Notary Association, and they have, a Texas specific I guess, course or bundle that you can purchase, because you'll find when you get into the loan signing arena that, people say, oh, I took notary to notary, notary to pro, Bill Soroka to notary coach. It's going to be a ton of, items out there. But for loan signing, NNA is industry specific, and most title companies and signing companies are going to ask you, are you certified in background screening through the NNA? And you're going to say yes, but then you may feel like, okay, I took that and I don't know, I still don't know what I'm doing. And so that's when people go out and get the secondary loan signing training from the notary to pro and the notary to notary and the Bill Sorokas and, that sort of thing. What I say with that is, because I get a lot of people to say, well, which loan signing course should I take? I always recommend NNA because that's the route I did, and most signing companies that I work for require NNA certification. But then I say with the secondary loan signing, everyone has a YouTube channel. Everyone, like you can Google any coach, they have a YouTube channel. Start watching some of the free videos and see what resonates with you before you spend your money, because, notary to notary may not be your cup of tea, but you like Mark Wills of the loan signing system. And a lot of people may not like the, the sales marketing type of things. And so what you have to decide is what you want out of that loan signing training. Because I find that we often don't know what we want, but when we pay for something, we're quick to pick out what we didn't get. And so some people don't realize training is different from mentorship. So some people take training, they say, well, I didn't have access to the coach. I didn't get this. Well, what did you purchase? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
kind of looking at what you want in advance, what you want out of the course. So with the additional loan signing training, if you feel like, I know a lot of people say, well, I don't know the documents. And then that's when they go with the secondary loan signing training. But there is a lot out there. It is a lot to choose from. And that's when you can ask your mentor or, your notary colleagues in Texas on like, who did they take? But just because I said I took Carol Ray's Notary to Pro, that may not be for everyone. When I started, there was only Carol Ray. There was Carol Ray. There was a lady here that she's been a notary for 20 years. She has a Virginia specific course, and I took everything from her, and then I went to Carol Ray and took her loan signing. But just because I did it that way, it may not work for you. So that's why I said, whoever you decide to choose, just make sure you get a couple of their YouTube videos, seeing if they resonate with you and whether you want to spend your money with them, because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of people doing document training, and I know what's you said you're in Texas, but I know in Maryland you guys have to be typic, but the rest of these states that don't require that, technically we're not supposed to be explaining documents. That's not our job, but we do want to look like the knowledgeable notary. We do want to say, oh, this is your promissory note, and I always say, oh, this is your most of the time in the Ron documents, the note is the very last thing. And I always say, oh, we've gotten to the fund document. This is your note. You promise to pay. You don't pay, you don't stay.
Right.
You don't have to know everything about a document. You don't, you read that title and you keep it moving. And I know that's the big controversy in some groups. Are you a
Right.
point and sign notary, or are you? And I don't think I'm a point and sign notary. I know enough to be dangerous, but then again, you also have to put your notary hat on and be unbiased and say, I can't explain
Mhm.
this document, even though, I may do mortgages and real estate on the side. That's not my job as a notary to explain, but you do want to be a little bit knowledgeable about the documents. And I hear that all the time. I don't know the documents. I don't want to accept my first signing. You do not have to know everything. As long as you know how to do that notarial certificate, you know how to issue an oath, you know when it's a jurat and sworn and subscribed and that sort of thing. Like, don't let the documents, get you hung up. But again, I'm speaking for Virginia and Texas. I know Maryland, you guys have to be on your P's and Q's.
And my next question, I have one more question. So me starting out, just being, I guess, a general basic notary, what time frame would you say I should give myself before I did kind of try to venture out into anything else, like a year? Or is it more or less, my
I don't think
learning?
I don't think it's a time person. I think you're gonna know when you're ready. I
Okay.
don't want to say give yourself 6 months when in a week you could say, I know my handbook, I know my notary laws, I'm comfortable, I want to graduate into something. So I say when you're ready, but at least, you know, I know people say, it may be on the job training, and really this can't be on the job training, because if you mess someone's documents up, then you have to be able to clean it up. But you're
Don't do
not
that.
going to know anything until you get out there and do it. So
Okay.
don't feel like, okay, I got to read everything. I got to take this course and it's going to take me 6 months to do it. I mean, you still want to be doing the job as you're continuing learning, because you always are going to continue to learn in this business. So no time frame. When you feel comfortable and you feel like you've done everything, I've taken my my state specific education, I've obtained a mentor or a notary buddy that I can call if I have an issue with something, or if it's something I've never seen, I can bounce ideas off another Texas notary. So it's kind of up to you.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information. I'm gonna start there. I'm just gonna wait until uh, my information comes. I have to wait, I guess, till I'm approved or whatever. and then go from there and just start out with the basics. And then in the meantime, slowly building up my, like, I guess the supplies that we need so I don't get hit all at once, little by little.
We're going to help you. But Kimberly, thank you for coming from all the way from Texas. But Christina put some great information for you in the chat. So if you look in the chat, yes, that's specific to Maryland. I mean, sorry, specific to Texas, because most of us are Maryland. In Virginia.
Oh, so I don't know how I saw this. I'm getting
girl,
on.
Cowgirl. Hey, welcome. But Christina put some great information for you in the chat. Okay, so look in the chat. You know how to look in the chat? You look at okay.
I'm not why I'm trying to figure this out.
She sound like me, y'all. Technology is not off.
I'm trying. I got to figure I'm trying to figure out how to multitask. How do you look? Never mind. I'll figure it out.
Okay, cool. So Keisha, so thank you for all this information about Ron, but I really want to know about Keisha, the notary signing agent, the Ron chick. So what made you decide that you wanted to be a notary public to start with?
So I work full time in the wealth management field, and at the time when I started my business, really the VA and After Hours VA, it doesn't stand for Virginia. It actually stood for virtual assistant. So I started off doing like social media management, that sort of thing. And then I also took a course on becoming a bankruptcy petition preparer. And I thought that was just going, scale up and that sort of thing. And I'm like, what can I do to make myself more marketable to attorneys? Now, my best friend, we actually work together. She's in HR. She had been a Virginia notary for well over, 10 or 15 years. And I said, well, maybe I'll become a notary to make myself more marketable to attorneys. So I was thinking along that lines. But me, I'm a researcher. I was asking her, well, what do you do with this? And she was like, I don't know. I just stamped the paper. I became a notary because the job required it. And I knew then I didn't want to be that person. So as I started like researching everything that went along with notary, I was like, okay, I got to find a Virginia notary. And so there's a local company here called Acorn that I buy my notary supplies from. They had a flyer with a lady named Bryce Hall. And so she had been, I guess, over 20 years now, but she was teaching like a Virginia basic notary law class, signing agent, how to become a mobile notary. So I took all that and then it just kind of took off. And so I joined a women's group and we met up for the first time and it was at a coffee shop and I was explaining to somebody what I wanted to do because at this time virtual assistant and all that was out of the window. I had did it for a while. It was fun. And then when posting to other people's social media's account became more like work, I'm like, oh, I don't think I want to do this. So I need to rebrand. I think I want to take this notary thing, to the next level. And I was explaining to somebody in the women's group what I was doing or wanted to do. And she was like, oh, have you talked to my Ron mentor? Her name is Pam as well. Have you talked to Pam? I think she does something like that. I don't know, something with mortgages she does. And so when I met my notary mentor, Pam, she just happened to live 15 minutes away from me and she owned a signing company.
What?
Like I had hit the jackpot and I know everybody else's journey won't be the same, but I was like, look, listen, lady, this is what I want to do. If I got to work for you for free, and this was during the time where, you don't take people to loan signings with you, but this was 2012. And she's like, oh, you're going to go with me to these loan signings and witness. And so she would get approval for doing that. And she would introduce me to the clients and say, this is a witness. She's also a notary. She's going to be shadowing me. Now, I know you can't do that these days, so don't ask anybody or you'll get shot down. We can't bring any extra people to the signing.
Oh, they will get you big time.
Yeah, but we were doing this in 2012. And again, like I mentioned, she owned the signing company. So she took a chance on me. And so I started doing signings for her signing company. And what we would do is I would take the documents back to her. She would QC them and, give me feedback and that sort of thing. So that's why I said definitely having a mentor will definitely cut the learning curb in half. And so after I started working from her, I was like, oh, well, I can do this for other companies. Like, let me, get out there. Let me start signing up with more signing companies. And it was great at the time because, again, like I said, I do this part time. And then when I was working with her, I was actually in school part time as well. So, she would save all her evening signings or late signings or weekend signings for me. And so that made it better as well. So, having that mentor. So that's how I started. It really wasn't to become a notary to do loan signing. It was more to market to attorneys. And then the more and more research I did, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Now, background story, my degree is in real estate. And when I tell people that, they're like, oh, you went to college to sell houses. No, I really didn't. I like the mortgage side of it, but I
Yeah.
really didn't do anything with it. So this is kind of the closest, I've dipped my toe into some type of, real estate, because my day job is wealth management. So I do like trading and investing and that sort of thing.
So you told me you have a 9 to 5. So how do you balance that between this, your notary, and life with your
Oh,
family?
it's been hard. I won't sit here and tell you it's been an easy thing, but it's doable. I've been running my business going on 10 years now. And
Mhm.
even though, I call it part-time, I do run it like a true business. Now, that's why I've branded myself as After Hours VA, because I wanted people to be sure that, they know they could connect with me after hours on the weekends, holidays, and that sort of thing. But you still
Mhm.
get people that will call you during the day. And that's why it's good to have a network of notaries in your area. And I know that people look at that as like, it's competition, but I have a group of probably 10 notaries that, if someone calls me and I can't accommodate them, the best thing you can do for a customer is say, hey, I'm not available with my
I
colleague
got
such and
you.
such.
Yeah.
Now I may not know her, her travel fee prices and that sort of thing, but here's their phone number, website, you can get in contact. So having a network that can kind of fill the gap. Now, I'm not a signing company by any means, and
Right.
I tell people that, but having those that network that's open and that you trust, that you can refer business to, and they can refer business back to you. And then also only accepting things I know I can accommodate. Like, I'm not gonna accept a signing that comes through at 3 p.m. No matter what Facebook tells you, don't accept the 3 p.m. and change it on the back end, because that's not real life. And I know people
Yeah.
say, oh, I run my own business, I can make my own, appointment times. And, I don't know where we picked that up from in the last 2 years, but that's not how, the business has been for me. If the appointment
Mhm.
was set, you may have customers that are flexible, because of course you're probably going to get the docs late. Um,
Yeah.
but only accepting what I can. And it's not that I go out and I tell, like the title company the real estate company I work with that sends me the power of attorneys. They've never asked me, do I have a full-time job? And I've never disclosed it. I'm not being dishonest, but they've gotten so they'll email me and say, hey, this is the client name. Here's a power of attorney attached, set up an appointment. And that's how the relationship forms. So when they send me work, it's not that I have to do it at a set time, but I can reach out to the client and say, hey, are you available today between these hours? Luckily for me, most of them are international, so it may be 5 hours before, 5 hours behind Eastern time. So accepting what I can when I can, and just not getting discouraged. Like I said, even though it is a part-time business for me, I do quite a bit of work, but it's all about accepting what you can, signing up for these different signing companies, and don't feel like, oh, I've counted 10 texts to come through and I didn't, I could have accepted it if I wasn't at work. But you gotta be, if you accept it, you have to be approved for it too. So it's always, I'm playing devil's advocate, because people count money that they don't have, and I don't, I've never been a fan of that. I can't count money that I
You
can't
don't have
touch,
yet.
don't have yet.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
that's
long story short, it's hard, especially when my son was younger, dealing with, even though his dad is here, it was almost like you ladies know how it is, but or partners know how it is, making
Mhm.
sure you have that family time. So, but again, not taking on more than what I'm willing to put out. And that's why when I started my mentor, even though she saved the late signings for me, I also really marketed the general notary work because I knew that was something I could do on the weekends or when I had availability, to do it.
Tell them again, Keisha, don't sleep on that general notary work, right?
No, don't sleep on it.
Well, I want to thank you because it's 5 o'clock and you have given us a whole hour of your time, and I really appreciate it. So I'm going to give the floor to everybody who wants a question, who want to ask you a question or has a comment towards you. So we're at the end, y'all. So y'all can unmute and talk to Keisha because she gave us some great nuggets today, and I really appreciate you so much. Y'all gotta going once, going twice. Unmute yourself.
I have one.
Okay.
I do. Thank you for what you just shared, because I also have a full-time job, but I try to operate my business as a full-time business as well. So thank you for sharing that. That's inspirational for me.
Right.
What can you talk more about in Virginia, the things that you absolutely cannot do through RON? I know you said wills, because in Maryland, there are some documents that we cannot do through RON. What else is off limits in Virginia?
Creations of trust. We can't do wills, and then any like vehicle title documents that have a odometer disclosure, because you know that the odometer disclosure, you have to verify, that information. So odometer disclosure documents. And then also we're allowed to do copy certification in a traditional sense, but you can't do that as RON. And then another caveat that I don't like, even though we're the pioneers of RON, our Secretary of State will not accept electronically notarized documents for apostille. So you still have to have traditional notarizations in that regard.
Okay. And I'm trained as an apostille as well. Do you do apostille work? Can you
I
talk about that?
I do. And I was talking to another notary today out in Virginia Beach because she's like killing it with her Google My Business. And I'm like, help me, help me. So I've tweaked my Google My Business page because I was getting a lot of, for a while, I'm 8 minutes from the Secretary of State. And I used to could just, if you walk in before 10, you'll have the document by 3. But since COVID, they've made it so where either you have to mail the document in or you have to make an appointment, which is fine. I've gotten a lot of like people that don't live in Virginia, but they graduated from a Virginia college and they need to send the, the diploma overseas. So I've gotten quite a bit of that, but I need to ramp up my marketing on it. So I have done quite a bit of apostilles, but none lately. I need to rack up on my marketing for that. I get a lot of college kids, so I went to VCU and I give discounts to VCU students. Did you go to VCU? Really?
My daughter went to VCU.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let her know.
I'm from Virginia. I'm not from Maryland. I'm from Virginia. Yeah.
Awesome. My son is in his last year. He's at the art school there. So I give discounts to VCU students. So the last apostille I got, which was last year, it was for a student and it was going to Russia and it was a power of attorney. And like, I can't hit a college kid in the head with a $300 apostille. So that's the struggle I've been having, that I see all these other people, they price, $250, $300, and I probably could get that amount of money, but I'm always getting the college kids or, young teachers that are going to teach overseas. And so, I set my prices $125, but I do see that a lot of people are, they're making bank in the apostille game. So I got to get my act together.
Girl, your act is together.
Right.
Do we have any other questions? I think the hacker friends are here. So I'm not gonna let them in.
Okay. And Ms. Aziz, if you want to reach out to me, I'll give you my contact information because I know you say you had a ton of questions. So
okay.
That'd be great. You can put your information in the chat as well, Keisha. And and so if y'all know these people that's trying to get in, I apologize because last week we had some hackers coming in. It seemed like they all popping in at the same time at the end. So I'm not sure. Anybody know Ashley from Texas? Barbara Layden, Bethany Dover, Gabby, George Graves. I'm not letting them in, okay? All right.
A quick question. Well, it may not be quick, but I had a question about how to make Ron work, because every site I've gone to has been extremely expensive to be a member on their platform. I've never seen $75 a month, but I've seen $425. I've seen 200 and some odd dollars. I haven't gone to all of them, but
Yeah.
I have gone to, it's just been financially exclusive.
It is. I mean, it's expensive. What state are you in, Tanya?
I'm in Maryland.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I was talking to someone the other day on Facebook, and like I said, I don't mean to say things to be discouraging, but it's just that the state makes it so cost
Fucking niggers.
prohibitive to do it.
See, there we go. Hold
Fucking
on, y'all.
niggers.
Uh-oh, sorry about that.
Exactly. I knew I saw somebody coming here.
The state makes it so cost prohibitive that you have to be mindful of the platform fees. And so I use Doc Verify as an example. When I got in on Doc Verify, it was like $450 a year, but if you did it monthly, they charge $50. Now they've gone up because now they're $750 for one license. And I had Doc Verify for 2 years. I used it. It worked. I made my money back triple fold, but that was in the height of COVID. And when it started dwindling, I said, I got to get out here and I got to find a platform that's more cost effective for me. And so I started using a platform called Secured Signing, which is $9.99 a month. But you do pay for KBA and session charges. And that's another thing you have to realize when you're looking at these platforms. You may be charged a monthly fee, and then you also may have to pay fees for every session. But to me, paying the $9.99 a month versus the 50 or 75 Doc Verify and not having any clients, I could absorb $9.99. I can't absorb 75 every month, and I may not have a company. And I know there's some names I recognize on here that are in Maryland, and they're doing Ron, like Candace. She's doing Ron, and I think you mentioned yesterday, Candace, that you do a lot of loan signings. So that may be the avenue that a Maryland Ron will have to go through. You have to contract with, a title company, a signing